It's also one of those products that is very niche. I mean, she even mentioned that it's restricted geographically. Like it's not something that you want to use in like a grass field or something like Nebraska or something. But it makes sense to use it somewhere in like the Netherlands or in like Venice or Japan, something that is surrounded by a body of water.
It's one of those things, I mentioned this in my previous videos, like use what's locally available, local building materials, local talent, local traditions, local culture. So like in the UAE, people build out of concrete because there aren't any trees. The idea of shipping trees from Scandinavia all the way to the UAE and converting every building material there to wood is just not sustainable. Like use what's local. So in the Netherlands, or even in Italy, she mentioned Italy as well, if seaweed is available and can be manipulated into something really great, really sustainable, and why not use that locally? But then scalability comes into the equation.
That is what we call in architecture school vernacular architecture. And it seems that she's very interested in that. And that's the idea of taking what's local and using that.
Unfortunately, that's dying.
It is, yeah. Globalization is really killing that. I always like to reference the example of a professor I had at Texas Tech University who he lived in Bern, Switzerland his whole life and came over to the United States. And of all places, he landed in Lubbock, Texas, which is just on the top. It's just on a plateau and there's absolutely nothing. But he was fascinated by the landscape and the sunsets and the horizon and just how different it was from Switzerland. And he actually spent a few years designing a home in Lubbock, but he wanted to respect the vernacular that was there. And so what he did is he captured the idea of a grain silo and used that as his vernacular for his home construction. And he made this beautiful building out of it.
Have you shown that to me?
Yeah, I've shown that to you. So it's not like a grain silo, but he would talk about how he would always make these drives, and to get anywhere in Lubbock, you have to drive a long ways. And he would see all these abandoned grain silos. And so he took that idea of the metal siding and used a corrugated metal for his house. So it's that mimicking of your environment.
You're going to make me say Houston has to convert into shipping container homes because it's vernacular because of their shipyard.
So I guess vernacular, you can take it.
Like how much do you stretch it?
Yeah, like that vernacular is not something that's been around for 1,000 years, like something like seaweed, I assume. Like ancient Japan, I could see that they used that a lot. But these grain silos were something that's relatively new, but they're abandoned, and it's kind of bringing that back.
It's an interesting take on vernacular. I would think like plaster homes or something would be vernacular in Lubbock.
That's more further west. That's New Mexico. That's Santa Fe and Albuquerque. You definitely see the fake adobe homes.
So like in the UAE, vernacular architecture might be like coral reef homes because they used to use corals as building blocks and plaster in between.
Oh, wow. Not glass skyscrapers?
No, touche. And even wind towers or something, that would be vernacular.
But that's an interesting point you make, that it's not scalable, because that is something that was done a long time ago when there wasn't this idea of scaling or globalization. So that's why these newer building materials, wood and metal and concrete, went out, because they're scalable.
There's a reason why vernacular architecture is dying, or unique architecture in each state or each country. It's because when one product can be made cheaply and can be exported to all these other countries in the world and is cheaper than what's locally made, everyone's just going to adopt what's cheapest. And you slowly lose that unique identity that you had.